So that will give us an idea of what to cover and what depth to go.
So what I'm thinking, Prabhu, you can maybe again start like it's fresh, it's new, because we do have many devotees who were not there that evening.
Okay. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
So should we start?
Yes, Prabhuji, please start.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Prabhuji, for giving this opportunity. It's an honor uh, to be to be with all of you, to be able to discuss Bhagavad Gita. It is always a joy to the heart to discuss the conversation between Krishna and Arjuna and Bhagavatam. It's a great opportunity. We'll discuss with Pranam prayers. Om Agyante Mirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Bandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsham Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadhvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Dalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamsham हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंश कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिंधुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्यईश्वरम् नमः ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी इति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे पंचतत्त्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकम् Nine chapter seems like a Herculean task. Just depends upon how much depth we go. The first chapter is the beginning is with the question by Dhritarashtra asking the Pandavas and the Kauravas assembled at Kurukshetra desiring to fight, what did they do? And then there is a description of the war. Sanjay describes that there is Pandavas on one side, the Kauravas on one side, the different conversations that is going on, the different emotions, how Duryodhana is speaking, inspiring, like instigating Bhishma Dev Dronacharya to be very alert, at the same time giving them joy by saying that how our strength is immeasurable. And then how the strength of Pandavas is limited and how our strength is unlimited, playing a very political role, using using the name of Drupad, the son of Drupad, because Dronacharya had enmity with Drupad. So using very political means to apparently, materially thinking he will be able to bring out their full potential, make them angry, so they can give their best, because Duryodhan was also thinking that they are biased towards Pandavas. So there is this political scene that is described in the beginning. And then there is Bhishma Dev blows his conch shell and Duryodhan blows his conch shell. They all blow, and then Krishna blows his conch shell, Panchajanya, Arjuna, they all blow their conch shell. And then the first chapter also describes the various mm, signs, SIGNS, various signs that how the victory will be on the side of Pandavas. Because Hanuman was there in the form of a flag. So Krishna calls him by the name Madhava. So Madhava means husband of goddess of fortune. Where the husband of goddess of fortune is there, victory will be there. How the land of Kurukshetra is Dharma Kshetra, and so it itself will support Dharma, and that itself is a sign. Everybody knows who is on the side of Dharma and who is usurping the kingdom by force. So there is this whole description, and then when the fight was about to begin, Arjuna requested Krishna in order to understand whom he is going to fight. He requested Arjuna to please take the chariot in the middle of the battlefield. And Krishna did so. Krishna did so. And then when Arjuna saw Duryodhan, he saw his grandfather Bhishma Pitama, he saw Dronacharya, all his brothers, and he became overwhelmed with affection. And because of his attachment, his intelligence became bewildered. And Arjuna is also a pure devotee, yet his intelligence was bewildered by the will of the Lord, so that Bhagavad Gita can be spoken. And then Arjuna gives various reasons why he doesn't think it's right to fight. First reason he gave is by fighting we will incur sinful reactions. Then he says, what about compassion for so many living entities? They will die. Then he says how the family traditions will be lost because all these men will die, the woman will become widowed, and woman naturally must be protected under father, under husband, or under elderly sons. And when the husband dies, naturally they are all very young, so the wife will be without um, shelter, and they may be exploited by degraded men. And naturally, the progeny is based on the consciousness of father and mother. If the man is degraded, then the progeny who will come will also be Varna Shankara, unwanted population will come. And because they are Varna Shankara or unwanted, they will not follow family tradition because one needs piety to be able to, like good souls who will follow those traditions or who have faith in those traditions. So these people, newborn generation, will not follow family tradition, and who will deliver the ancestors from the hellish planets if no pinda is offered to them. So the whole family tradition of the whole dynasty will be lost. And then Arjuna says, where is the happiness? If the happiness will be tainted with the blood of my own relatives, my teachers, my grandfather, my brothers. So who can enjoy such kind of happiness? And in that way, after speaking apparently very learned words, Arjuna became overcome by grief, stricken by grief, and he took his bow and arrow, his quiver from his shoulder, kept it onto the floor of the chariot, and he sat down. And then this is the ending of the first chapter. Then the second chapter begins with Arjuna, with Krishna. He saw Arjuna full of lamentation, Arjuna depressed, Arjuna's eyes full of tears, and Arjuna full of compassion. Then Madhusudana Krishna spoke the following words. The reason why Prabhupada also says this compassion was on a bodily level. The compassion can be at the level of body, mind, or soul. And body level compassion is born out of ignorance. Although a devotee also shows at the level of body, but his compassion at the level of body is connected with the self, with the soul. But only at the level of body is a sign of ignorance. And um, um, Krishna is called by the name Madhusudana because Madhu represents doubts, and Madhusudana is one who kills the doubts, and that Krishna will do. And then Krishna started speaking, and Krishna, after Arjuna gave such convincing reasons from the Shastra, Krishna says, you are speaking like a learned man. Um, these words don't suit um, Aryan who knows the value of life. Um, give up such petty weakness of the heart. And Krishna said that because um, all these reasons of Arjuna were they were born from um, mm, his attachments. Arjuna was becoming weak to perform his duty because he was attached. Attachment makes a person weak. So Krishna said, "Give up, and you are speaking like a learned man, but you're actually the words are foolish, and they are arising from the weakness of your heart. Give up such petty, this small, insignificant reasons and weakness of your heart and stand and fight." And Arjuna became further like uncontrolled or bewildered. And Arjuna says, Krishna, you are saying this, but how can I fight the members who are worthy of my worship? There is grandfather, there is teacher. How can I counter attack them with my arrows when they are worshipable people? Prabhupada also says, subtle question. Arjuna puts, would you fight with your own teacher Sandipani Muni and others? So how can I counterattack them with my bows and arrows? And then Arjuna, after saying this, then Arjuna says, nor do we know what is better. Should we conquer the son of Dhritarashtra or being conquered by them? And then Arjuna says, I don't know what to do. And then he says, now I'm confused about my duty. Then he says, oh Krishna, please tell me decisively what is decisively means clearly. Please tell me decisively what is better for me. Um, now I am a soul surrendered to you. Um, please instruct me. And in this way, he takes a humble position and he asks for guidance. And then again, after doing this, then again Arjuna became grief stricken. Um, and then he again he was crying when he said, Krishna, please instruct me. I am a soul surrendered to you. And then while in a sitting position, then Arjuna says, Govinda, I shall not fight. And then Krishna smiled. Why Krishna smiled is because, first of all, he asked Arjuna. First of all, Arjuna says, I am confused about my duty. Please instruct me what is good. Decisively tell me, I am a soul surrendered to you. And then again, he goes back to his original statement, grief stricken, and then he says, Govinda, I shall not fight. So this also shows that although we may surrender, our surrender is more spontaneous. After we surrender also, the next moment we still do what we are attached to, or we still act according to the modes that are acting on us. Krishna also says later on, what can repression of the modes accomplish? We will be forced to act by the modes, as if by force. And after saying this, then Krishna says, those who are wise, they limit neither for the living nor for the dead. Obviously, Krishna saw that Arjuna is lamenting over his loved ones. And the first statement, when he took the post of a guru, spiritual master, he says, those who are wise, they lament neither for the living nor for the dead. And then Krishna says, there was never a time when they did not exist, and nor I, nor all these kings, nor you, and there will never be a time in the future when they will cease to exist. Dehi nosmani yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jana. Just like the body is constantly changing from boyhood to youth to old age. Likewise, at the end of when the body dies, the soul accepts another body. The body is already constantly changing. Like Sri Prabhupada says, at some point of time, we were in a body of a child, 1 day old. Now that body is gone and we have a completely new body. We have already changed body while in this life. Then why don't we understand this change of body is a continuous process and this goes on? And then Krishna says, for the soul, there is neither birth nor death at any point of time. Those who think they can slay, they can kill somebody is in ignorance. And those who think somebody can be killed is also in ignorance because the soul is by nature indestructible. That which permeates the body is indestructible. It cannot be touched by any of the weapon that you can use. Whether you use a fire weapon, it cannot be burned by fire, cannot be withered by wind, cannot be moistened by water. You can use a water weapon, you can use a fire weapon, you can use a wind weapon. You can try to break the bodies into two. The soul cannot be broken into pieces. The soul is inconceivable, immutable, inchangeable. The soul is eternal. And one who knows this, and although the body will go, that is true, but then the happiness and the stress, they will come in this world anyways. If not today, they will come tomorrow. They come like summer and winter season. And a wise man, a learned man, a sober man should a sober man should try to tolerate such happiness and distress, which actually this happiness distress comes from mental concoction. They arise from sense perception, how you perceive it. And then after giving this various instruction on the science of the self, the science of the soul, then Krishna says, Arjuna, try to understand you are a Kshatriya by nature, and therefore there is no better engagement for you than fighting on a religious principles. And happy are those Kshatriyas on whom such opportunities comes, opens the door for liberation. If they die, they go to heavenly planets. And if they live and they win, then they enjoy a prosperous kingdom. So you should be very grateful that you have got these opportunities. And on the other hand, if you neglect your duty as a Kshatriya, you will incur sins for neglecting. On the other hand, if you run away the way you are saying, then people will scorn of your ability. People will not say he ran away because of compassion, because of so many reasons. People will say he ran away because of fear. And for a man who is respectable, dishonor is worse than death. How will you be able to tolerate all this? Therefore, you should stand up and fight. Arjuna, that shows that Arjuna is still sitting only. He like his bow and arrow in one place, and he is crying, and Krishna is giving him transcendental knowledge. And he said, you should stand up and fight. And then Krishna says, let me explain to you. I have explained to you in terms of gain, but actually the higher principle is you should fight without considering victory or defeat, loss or gain, happiness or distress. You should fight just for the sake of fighting. Now listen, Arjuna, as I explained to you on a devotional term. And now Krishna switches the gears. And Krishna says, now I will explain to you in terms of Buddhi Yoga. Prabhupada said this is where the gears are switched. Buddhi Yoga, Prabhupada says, is same as Bhakti Yoga. Buddhi Yoga is Bhakti Yoga. Or doing something for the sake of pleasing the Lord. Or one is just this, what Krishna explained so far is for those who are attached. Those who are attached, now inspiring them. And Krishna is very very understanding. So Krishna is convincing Arjuna at all level, at a material level also. Later on, Krishna also says in Karma Yoga that don't disturb the mind of those who are attached. And we will see that in third chapter, Krishna speaks that concept of the ignorant people and the wise people. And then he says, in this path of doing your activity for my pleasure, um, there is no a loss or diminution, or it will be an eternal benefit to you. Anything you do, keeping me in the center, it will be of eternal benefit to you. And in fact, people who are determined, their aim is one, O son of Guru, and that is to attain me. And those who are attached, their intelligence is multi-branched. And then Krishna says, um, um, by the act of devotional service. First, Krishna says that you should perform your duty equipoised. This is very difficult because Arjuna is naturally lamenting, depressed. And Krishna says you should perform your duty equipoised. Means this is your duty, and you should do your duty for the sake of the divine. And you should not be disturbed or just remain equipoised. And Krishna says such equanimity is called yoga. And when you do your duty, what you are supposed to do in the service of Krishna, not considering the benefit or the distress that duty may bring, but doing it just for the sake of pleasing the Lord. Such equipoised duty, such equanimity is called yoga. And by this duty for the sake of divine, by devotional service, Krishna says, by the strength of devotional service, keep all the abominable activities far away from you. Don't engage in sinful acts. And whatever sinful acts you have performed in the past, Krishna says, by practice of devotional service, you will get rid of both good and bad reactions. Naturally, we all have very, very clear instructions. Naturally, we all have a sinful past, some form or another. Then Krishna says, now, after having come to devotional service, perform your duty equipoised. And any further abominable activities keep far away by the strength of devotional service. And whatever previous reactions may be there, they will be burned by the path of devotional service itself. Then verse number 51, Krishna explains that great sages in the past, by the practice of devotional service, they rid themselves from the reactions of material work or from karma bandhana, from good or bad reactions. They got rid themselves, and hence they broke the cycle of birth and death. And in that they attained the state beyond all miseries by going back to Godhead. So in this way, Krishna encourages him. And Krishna says, once your intelligence has passed through the dense forest of delusion, then you will become indifferent to all that is heard and all that is to be heard. Means right now, you are affected because of illusion, because of delusion, and you are bewildered, and you don't know what is right and what is wrong. And that is because of your bodily conception of life, because of your attachment. It is making you weak, and you are covered by delusion. And now you are thinking you have so many factors about family tradition, about this is all what Arjuna has heard in the past. Or there are many things that he will hear, family tradition and sinful reaction. So, and they are all arising by Arjuna's attachment. So Krishna says, when your mind is no more, is free from the delusion, then you become indifferent to all that is to be heard, or all that you have heard and all that you may hear. You become indifferent, and you simply do whatever Krishna wants, rather than what will I get and what losses I will have, what gain I will have, what about kingdom, what about this, all the worldly things. Rather, Vyavasayatmika Buddhi means you will do it only for my pleasure. And in this way, those who perform their duty for the sake of the divine, unbewildered, they are said to have attained the divine consciousness. Then Arjuna says, tell me something more about those who have attained divine consciousness. How do they walk? How do they talk? How do they sit? And then Krishna becomes very pleased with that answer, and Krishna explains how do they talk means how do they respond. And first Krishna answers how do they talk. And Krishna says how they talk is talk basically means respond. How do they respond? So Krishna says they are unaffected by the threefold miseries. That's Atmavan, those who are self-realized. Threefold miseries means your misery is coming from other living entities. Your misery is coming from your own body and mind. So they are unaffected. They are equipoised, and they perform their duty for the sake of pleasing the Lord. That is Buddhi Yoga or Bhakti Yoga. And those who are self-realized, those who are not deluded in their duties, they're they're unaffected by the threefold miseries, and they act without vitalaga bhaya krodha sthita dharmani uchyate. Their mind is steady, and steady mind is they are free from attachment, which naturally is not the case with Arjuna. They are free from fear, which again naturally is not the case with Arjuna. Arjuna has fears. What about they will die? I will die. Uh, I will go to hell. This is all fear because of sinful reaction. The family tradition will be lost. That is also out of fear. So those who, how do they respond? Atma one, how do they respond? Is they are um, they they are free from threefold miseries, or they don't respond with. I mean, they respond by not unaffected by the miseries when it come upon them, and they are free from fear, free from anger, and they are free from attachment. And that's how they respond to this world by everything they do, and that's how they're equipoised. Inspiring for Arjuna. Then Krishna answers the next that how do they sit? Then the next Krishna answers, well, how do they sit? They sit like a tortoise. They withdraw the senses whenever there is danger. They don't trust their senses. And why they withdraw their senses? Then Krishna explains in few verses why they withdraw their senses. Because Krishna says um, sense gratification and devotional service, they go ill together. Those who are attached to sense gratification, they cannot have a determination for devotional service. Even one of the roaming senses can carry away the mind of a transcendentalist who is endeavoring to control them. Even if someone is very serious about controlling the senses, even one of the senses can deviate the mind of a practitioner. Um, and then Krishna says how by contemplation lust develops. And if one allows oneself to contemplate, if one does not withdraw one's senses like a tortoise, and once allows his senses to engage, then there will be contemplation, there will be lust, and there will be attachment, there will be anger, and then there will be bewilderment of memory and intelligence, and then one will again fall down. One will again be covered by ignorance, delusion, and will fall down again. And that's why it is very important for one should not test oneself, especially we know our strength and weaknesses, and we should not let ourselves lose where we are weak, because naturally the mind will cheat us. So that's how a yogi sits is um, um, and then the third question Arjuna asks, how does he walks? And Krishna says, how does he walk? And Krishna says he follows the he walks by following the regulative principles of freedom. And they are called regulative principles of freedom because one who breaks these regulative principles, they are bound by the laws of karma. But one who follows the regulative principle, they can remain free. That's why they are called. Some people say, we don't want to go to ISKCON, especially new people, because there's so many restrictions. But they are foolish people because they are thinking there are so many restrictions in ISKCON, but they don't realize that that Bhagavad Gita or ISKCON is making them free from their karma bandhana, from the reactions to this world, so that they can become free to go back. Otherwise, they are bound in the cycle of birth and in the cycle of karma. So, how do they walk? Means deal with this world, and they They don't engage in any sinful activities and they perform devotional service. And Krishna says these are the external symptoms of a Atmavan, of a self-realized soul. And then finally, Krishna ends the chapter by saying, by discussing about those whose mind are undisturbed by the various desires that enter, and those whose mind remain peaceful, just like the rivulets entering into the ocean. Ocean is undisturbed, likewise so many desires may enter into the mind. And a yogi, he does not strive to fulfill those desires, but he remains peaceful and he let the desire come and go, come and go, come and go. Um, and when he is situated, he is not working to fulfill those, striving to fulfill those desires, but is peaceful like an ocean and deep and in a divine consciousness. And that person, if he is situated in that way, at the hour of death, then he can attain um, the spiritual world. And then in the third chapter, Arjuna begins by asking Krishna if the goal is to be situated at the time of death um, in this state, thinking about you, not fulfilling any desires, not working to fulfill our desires, then why do you want me to fight and kill and do all this ghastly work when you think, um, why do you want me to engage in this ghastly affair um, when this is the goal? Um, why don't why do you want me to engage in ghastly affair and not let me renounce this fighting and go away? Then Krishna says, my dear Arjuna, you cannot renounce because because one has to work according to one's nature. One is driven by the different modes. There is mode of passion, there is mode of goodness, there is mode of ignorance. Some are Brahmana, mode of goodness, some are Kshatriya, passion, goodness, some are Vaishya, goodness and ignorance, and some are Shudras who are majorly in ignorance. And based on the three modes of material nature, one is driven to work. So you think you want to renounce, but then you will simply become a pretender, because even if you renounce, you don't act, but then you will still be absorbed, your mind will still be absorbed in the work born out of your nature. So, um, mm, so don't act artificially. Rather, whatever work is born out of your nature, which is for you as a Kshatriya, the work born, natural work born out of you is fighting. If you renounce this fight, you will go and fight somewhere else, but then you will incur the sinful reaction for neglecting your duties, and all these things will come along with you, and you will incur sinful reactions from that. Then Krishna says, so one has to work. One cannot stop working even for a moment because the three modes are constantly acting. And then Krishna says, but whatever work is born out of your nature, you should do that work for the pleasure of Vishnu. Otherwise, the work causes bondage. So in other words, as a Kshatriya, you have to fight, but now you fight to please Vishnu. So far, Krishna has not, Krishna is gradually elevating Arjuna's consciousness to understand who Krishna is. So far, Arjuna also does not have full clarity. That's why later on in the 11th chapter, he begged forgiveness when he sees the universal form. Krishna, please forgive me. I didn't understand who you are. I treated you as my friend, as my relative. And I joked with you. So clearly Arjuna says that he doesn't understand. And Krishna has not established himself yet, which later on he says in the part of the most confidential knowledge. But at this point, Arjuna says, Krishna says work has to be done for the sake of Vishnu, otherwise work causes bondage in work causes bondage. But renouncing is not possible because you will become a pretender. You will still contemplate on your nature. the work born out of your nature, and eventually you will do it again. So it is not sustainable. Rather, you direct your work and do it for the pleasure of the Lord. And then Krishna speaks about the yagya, the concept of yagya. And Krishna says the importance of yagya. Krishna says the Vedas are manifested from the Supreme Lord, and the Vedas describe the prescribed duties. And yagya is to perform one's prescribed duty. Krishna, uh, in two ways, Krishna brings. Basically, from the Vedas, which is coming from the Supreme Lord, you get to know a prescribed duty. And then performing your prescribed duty is the yagya, which for Arjuna, performing the prescribed duty is kshatriya, sake of fighting. So for him, yagya is fighting for the pleasure of the Lord. And then Krishna says, yagya brings rain. Rain brings food grains. And food grains, when they are offered back to the Lord in the sacrifice, as a sacrifice, then one becomes free from the sins. Why? Because the food grains are living entities. So two concept comes. One is perform your yagya, which is, from the Supreme Lord, you have got this yagya, this prescribed duty, which is as a kshatriya to fight, and that is your yagya. And now you do your duty, and then for the pleasure of the Lord, then that completes this yagya cycle. Whatever we are is by the um, um, our intelligence, our strength, Krishna says in the 7th chapter, our ability comes from him, Krishna says. And the ability and the strength and the intelligence, I. And then when we use it back in the service of the Lord, then we are not, then there is no bondage of karma. This completes the cycle. We have received and we are giving it back in the service of, completes the yagya. And same with the food grains also. Food grains also come from yagya. Srila Prabhupada gives an example of Sankirtan yagya as a primary yagya, and that brings the food grains. And then when it is offered back to the Lord, then there is no sin in eating those food grains. Otherwise, Krishna says one eats verily sin. And then Krishna says, but for those whose activities are dedicated to self-realization, for those whose every act is done for the pleasure of the Lord, they have no duty to perform. So it's not that everybody has duty to perform. Those who have a duty to perform, those who are bound by the three moods, they must perform their duty. Because even if they try to give up their duty, they will be forced to act in this way. Krishna says, what can, in 3rd chapter only, Krishna says, what can repression of the mode accomplish? Even if you try to replace the mode, what can you accomplish? But those who are free from three moods, now they're not compelled by anything. Now their every act is not driven by a desire to enjoy, but their every act is driven by a service to the Lord. So they have no prescribed duties. And for those who have no prescribed duty, Krishna says, first of all, Arjuna, you are a Kshatriya. It's very interesting. For us, Arjuna is actually free from three modes. That's how we understand. But he's covered by the three modes by the will of the Lord. Let's see in this way. But right now we are considering Arjuna is covered by the three modes. So he says, first of all, for you, you have to work. But you work for the pleasure of the Lord. But for those who have no prescribed duties, because they are transcendental, there is nothing that is coming out of their nature, but their every act is for the pleasure of the Lord. They have no duty to perform, but they still perform the duty to set a good example. And then Krishna gives an example like Maharaj Janak. He was transcendental personality, pure devotee of the Lord, taking care of the kingdom, performing his prescribed duty. Krishna gives his own example. I have no duty to perform. Krishna says, I'm not attached. I'm not working for your kingdom. I have no duty. Why? Because Krishna himself says in the 7th chapter, I'm beyond the three moods. So obviously Krishna, we understand. So Krishna says, I have no duty to perform, yet I am engaged. in this activity, becoming your chariot driver. To set a good example, because if I don't set a good example, whatever leaders do, common man will follow. And if leaders they go in the wrong direction, then whole world will be put into ruination. Then people will say Krishna did like this, so I can also do like this. um, um, so Krishna is very interesting. Krishna is free, and here Krishna is acting himself to be bound to set a good example. But Vrindavan Pastor and Krishna acts freely also. Just doesn't care what people think about him. He just acts for the pleasure of his devotees. So Krishna said that one has to, even if one is free from the three modes, one still has to act to set a good example. Otherwise, the whole world will be put to ruination. And then Krishna said there are two kind of people. Krishna said there are those who are ignorant and there are those who are in knowledge. Who are in ignorant? Ignorant are those who work because they're attached to the results. I am working because of this game. This is what I want from here. This is what I want from here. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Dhanam, Janam, and Sundaram. I want fame, wealth, opposite sex. And I'm working for some results. And this is ignorant. Ignorant, they work based on the three modes. They work based on how they're impelled to work. And they work for a material attachment, a material gain. And they, Krishna says, they ahankara vimudhatma kartahamiti manjate. Prakriti kriyamanani gunakarmani sarvasya ahankara vimudhatma kartahamiti manjate. And those who are ignorant, it is their description continuing, that they think they are the doer. This is what I will get, and if I get, they're ignorant. So they get something and they think, see, I worked so hard, that's why I get it. And I was successful here. Oh, I was miserable, I didn't get it. And they are working for attachment. Sometimes there is happiness, sometimes they are distress. And they think something didn't go bad because of me, and they think sometimes something that did well, that went well, was also because of me. So they are acting on a platform of ahankar. They don't understand that they are being impelled by the mode of passion, mode of ignorance, mode of goodness to act in a certain way. And the results they are getting is the result of their own karma, the good and bad, success or failure. They don't see anything beyond. They are on a very gross level. So they are acting, they think this is what I get. And then they think they are the doer of their activities, and then they either become happy or they become distressed. So Krishna, these are two kind of people. One is ignorant and one is wise. The wise sees beyond. The wise are in knowledge. And then Krishna says those who are wise, Krishna said they should not unsettle those who are ignorant. The ignorant, Krishna says, don't unsettle them. Unsettle them means don't disturb their faith in materialism. Because um, um, even if you unsettle them, tomorrow they will still do what the modes impels them to do. And this is exactly the point where Krishna says, what can repression of the modes accomplish? Even if you try to, even if they understand, yeah, that makes sense. And then, no, I should not be like that. And then after 1 hour, they will again be like that. Because by knowledge, by hearing, one cannot go or become free from the three modes. One has to work according to the modes. One is forced to be impelled. One is impelled as if by force to work according to the nature he has acquired from the three modes of material nature. So Krishna says, therefore, wise should not unsettle them because it is not sustainable. And then Krishna says, rather, the wise should encourage them to work in a spirit of devotion. Yeah, Prabhu, you are the doer. Huh? Okay, you are the doer. You like this. Huh? Then the wise sees everything. But wise says, Prabhu, do it. Try to bring Krishna in the center, Prabhu. Try to chant one round. But rather, one should not unsettle them, but one should inspire them. One should motivate them to work in a spirit of devotion. And after explaining this concept of the wise and the ignorant, then Krishna says, everyone should act as per my injunctions, as per my instruction. And those who reject out of envy what I'm speaking, their endeavor, their desire to attain the goal, to attain the perfection will be put to ruination. And then Krishna says there are principles to regulate attachment and aversion. And those who are controlled by attachment and aversions, they become the stumbling block. So Krishna says one should regulate one's attachment and aversions. Naturally, ignorant people, those who are ignorant, they think themselves to be the doer. They are attached to the results of their activities. They are working for the result of their activities. They are being controlled by three modes, and they are controlled by three modes. Then they have many desires. They have some desires if they're impelled by a mode of passion. They have other desires when they're in mode of ignorance. They have other desires when they're in mode of goodness. And then Krishna says there are principles to regulate attachment and aversion. And what are the principles? We know, whatever material desire you have, see how that desire can be fulfilled, keeping Krishna in the center, not in an unrestricted way. There is regulation for everything. Um, And no need to go. I'm sure devotees understand in their heart what the regulations are. Otherwise, you can ask questions later on. But there are regulations to regulate your attachment and aversions. But if you just follow your attachment unrestrictedly, like for example, no illicit sex, but does not mean no sex. Say no illicit sex. Now there is a regulation. Um, mm, mm, One is allowed for the sake of procreation, but then so this is not unsettling them, this is regulating them. Well, you cannot drink these things, but you can do these things. So regulate attachment and aversion, but unrestricted um, uh, attachment will become a stumbling block in the life of a yogi. And then finally, at the end of third chapter, Arjuna says, Krishna, I understand that regulation and attachment should be regulated, and I understand your injunction, but what is the force that does not allow me to follow your injunctions? Um, mm, Even though I know this is wrong and I know this should be regulated, I am still impelled as if by force. What is the force? Then Krishna says, Kamaisha, Krodhaisha, Rajoguna, Samudbhava. Um, it is lust only, Arjuna. What is lust? Lust is material attachment. Everything in this, Krishna says, it is the all-devouring enemy of this world. All-devouring means everything is motivated by calm. Everything. Our eating, our desire for fame, our desire for wealth, our desire to dress opulently, our attachment to the results for our work, everything is motivated by calm. There is gross lust and subtle lust, everything. And Krishna says it is an all-devouring enemy. What kind of enemy? Everybody is devoured by this enemy. And we can see in our own lives, we're all devoured by this enemy. And then Krishna says, the more we feed, it burns like fire. It is present in the senses, in the mind, in the intelligence, in the region of the heart. It is inside, it is outside. It is born out of mode of passion. And it turns into wrath. If it is unfulfilled, becomes angry. A small child, when she doesn't get what she wants to eat, becomes angry. Lust only, Arjuna. So um, they have their own small houses on the sand beaches, and we have our own houses in the city center. And everyone, wherever there is any form of attachment, gross form or subtle form, everything is a symptom of kama esha, krodha esha, lust only, Arjuna. And then finally, Krishna says, steady the mind. At the end of the third chapter, Krishna says, steady the mind. And how do you steady the mind? By deliberate spiritual intelligence. Krishna says, higher than sense object is the senses, higher than senses is the mind, higher than mind is the intellect. So steady the mind by a sharpened intellect, sharpened intellect by Shastra. Sharpen intellect, steady the mind, control the senses. And then senses withdraw from the sense object. Very, very difficult. Every verse Krishna speaks has great depth in it. This knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, in the end, it says, whoever worship this knowledge of Krishna and Arjuna, everything will be there. There will be success, there will be victory, there will be opulence at the end. But we neither want success, neither we want victory, nor we want opulence, we want bhakti. But but these things will be there wherever these things are there. Then finally, um, without asking any further question by Arjuna, put forward by Arjuna, Krishna start explaining the science of Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna says, this knowledge that I'm describing to you, it's not a new one, Arjuna. I instructed this science to Vivaswan. He instructed it to his son Manu. He instructed it to his son Ikshvaku. And in this way, this knowledge is coming down in disciplic succession. Knowledge was preserved, but at some point of time when disciplic succession was broken, then adharma arose. And then Arjuna asked this question, how can you give this knowledge to sun god when he's senior by birth to you? Krishna says, you are always there. I have always been there. I remember all my births, but you don't. That is the difference between you and me. And then Krishna clarifies, don't think I have birth. And then Krishna says, Janma karma cha me divyam. Evam yogati tatvata taktva deham punna janma naiti mamati suvarchanam. Krishna says, my birth is transcendental. My body is transcendental. My activities are transcendental. And then Krishna says, wherever the disciplic succession is broken, the dharma arise, and to establish dharma, to annihilate the miscreants, and to support those who are my devotees, I descend again and again and bring this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. And now I'm speaking this knowledge again to you. And by this means, I'm again establishing dharma. And this chapter is called Transcendental Knowledge. And then Krishna says, after describing this verse, that if you understand my birth and my activities are transcendental, you will come to me. Many people have very difficult or hard time understanding how everything about Krishna's Janma and Krishna Karma are transcendental. One person was asking this question about Krishna's Ras Leela. How can Krishna do that? So I said, first of all, you cannot understand, but try to understand that how can he act on mode of passion? I said, there is no passion there. It's transcendent. Every karma of Krishna is transcendental. If you understand, you will go back to him. But if you misjudge Krishna, then you will stay here. Try to understand. Anybody who hears the pastimes of Krishna become free from lust only. How can Krishna be influenced by any material disease? Try to understand how every activity of Krishna is transcendental. And Krishna says, Evam yoveti tattvata. Tattva matlab whoever understands this truth. Tattva deham punarjanma. After giving up this body, naiti mameti. So naiti matlab पुनर्जन्म नहीं थी दोबारा जन्म नहीं मिलता उनको पुनर्जन्म नहीं थी माम इति so Arjuna and Arjuna he comes to me mam iti he comes to me. Then Krishna says, what is knowledge? How difficult it is to act in knowledge. This transcendental knowledge itself is like Mahabharata, very very difficult to apply this knowledge. What is knowledge? What is transcendental knowledge? Krishna says one is understood to be in full transcendental knowledge whose every endeavor is devoid of sense gratification. Now, if you talk about some of us, I'm talking about myself, then every endeavor is motivated by some form of sense gratification is there. Our devotional service is mixed. So we have not attained transcendental knowledge. Transcendental knowledge is not something that we learn by hearing. Transcendental knowledge is something that is given to us, awarded to us as the result of bhakti. Bhakti, Vasudeve Bhagavati, Bhakti Yoga Prayojita. Janayati Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chahidahitukam. This knowledge and renunciation is something that arises from bhakti. It is not something that is acquired from reading and hearing. Of course, we get an understanding, but it is not yet transcendental knowledge. Krishna says, what is transcendental knowledge? One is said to have attained full knowledge, transcendental knowledge, when his every endeavor is devoid of the desire for sense gratification. When his every endeavor is devoid of the desire for sense gratification, he is said to have attained transcendental knowledge. And now somebody may say, how can I get this transcendental knowledge? Then Krishna says, you have to perform some yajna. Different people perform different sacrifice. Some sacrifice their wealth in charity. Some sacrifice grahastha have their own sacrifice of um, um, regulated sense control. Brahmachari have their own sacrifice of complete restraining of the mind and senses. Then some sacrifice in Brahman, some sacrifice in the yogic fire, and different people take up different. Some sacrifice in demigod worship. Some we have to perform some yagya, and the Krishna says the goal of yagya is that every activity become devoid of the desire for sense gratification. Is real knowledge. And Krishna says, what is the best way to acquire real knowledge? Krishna says, Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. You approach a spiritual master and then you do pariprashna. The question to spiritual master should not be in a argumentative mood or from our seniors, should not be to defeat them, should not be to show them how I'm better than you, because then you will not gain anything, then you will not gain any knowledge, then you may just be in an ego battle. But it should be pariprashna. I want to understand. When you are in the eager to understand, Krishna will reveal the knowledge to you. That is the first sign of the way to receive knowledge is seva and humility. Is when we go in a mood to understand, then Krishna will reveal to us. But when we go in a mode of ahankar, then we have some argumentation and we get disturbed in the mind and we don't understand anything. We come back disturbed, we go disturbed, and we are there, we are disturbed. It's complete destruction process. So it has to be pariprashna and seva. And when we serve and when we inquire in a humble mood, then the knowledge is revealed through the lotus mouth of spiritual master. And then once knowledge is revealed, then we practice bhakti as described by the Guru. And by the practice of bhakti, gradually, then slowly, the knowledge over a period of time, when we become mature in our path of bhakti, then the knowledge is started to reveal to us transcendental knowledge. It's not something acquired externally. Krishna says, by faith, refuge, shelter in my devotional service, under direction of spiritual master, this knowledge gradually matures. And what is the power of this knowledge? Krishna gives two examples. Krishna says, even if you are the most sinful of all sinners, means there is nobody as sinful as you. The sins you have performed, like Ajamil, the sin you have performed are incomparable. You get the Guinness World Book record for the maximum amount of sins you have committed in your life. Even if you are the most sinful of all sinners, if you are placed in a boat of transcendental knowledge, in that boat you can cross over the ocean of nations and go to cycle of birth and death and become free from all the material existence. Even if you are the most horrible person, once transcendental knowledge comes, and which is like, it's not easy, it comes by the process of bhakti. And what is transcendental knowledge? When every activity is done for the sake of the Lord, that bhakti mood will burn out anything. Another example given is just like a fire can burn the firewood to ashes. Any amount of firewood you give, or firewood is like, it's like a lakdi. It's a wood which has inherent fire in it, but it is not burnt yet. Any amount of a fire can burn any amount of fire into ashes. Likewise, this transcendental knowledge, which is basically things done only for the pleasure of the Lord and not for the sake of, devoid of any desire for sense gratification. That transcendental knowledge can burn any amount of reaction to material activities, karma, sinful reactions, any amount of it, it can burn into ashes. This transcendental knowledge acts as a fire that can burn any of our past and over. And then at the end, Krishna says, therefore, um, and then Krishna says, one must, basically the idea is approach a spiritual master. That is the yagya. Hear from him, render service unto him. And then what we have heard, try to practice that. And gradually the transcendental knowledge will mature. And this transcendental knowledge is given by Lord Krishna 40 million ago. This knowledge is not new. And this knowledge Krishna has again come to give it to Arjuna. And this knowledge can be attained by approaching a guru. That's why Prabhupada says, don't try to read Bhagavad Gita by yourself. You can read, it is very beneficial even if you read, because Prabhupada purports are there, but better try to hear from your seniors. Like we have Niveshanya Prabhu here. Better try to hear from those who realize it, who are practicing it. Um, through seva and through humbleness. And then by practicing what we hear from our superiors, from our spiritual master, then that knowledge that Krishna is speaking to Arjuna will gradually be revealed in our heart. And the gradual revelation of transcendental knowledge means acting on that knowledge, means living that knowledge. When our life becomes an example of Bhagavad Gita, then everything in the past will be destroyed and we will be established and ready to go back home back to. That is the power of transcendental knowledge. And Krishna says, whatever doubts that arise from ignorance should be slashed, should be cut by the weapon of this transcendental knowledge. Sometimes we may get some doubts. Then Krishna says, yes, very nice. If you get some doubts, then use your own knowledge. Use what you have heard, what you have read, what Krishna is speaking. Use your own intelligence, and your own internal should cut, your own spiritual intelligence should cut the doubts that are arising from your material intelligence. Your own understanding, your own transcendental knowledge should cut your own doubts. And then having done that, then he says, Arjuna, now you get up and fight. So, Prabhu, how are we doing? Niveshanya Prabhu, we just covered 4 chapters.
We are doing well, Prabhu. This is beautiful.
So, is everyone becoming exhausted? Is it becoming?
How's everybody doing? Do you want to go a little bit more?
It's good, Prabhu. Thanks. Really going well.
Okay.
Lot of information.
Yes, Prabhu. Let's go. Let's keep going.
So keep going 5th chapter. Okay. So
Yes,
then,
Prabhu.
okay, thank you, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, before we move on, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I know you want us to get, from what I understand, is get out of transcendental illusion. But how do you attain moksha other than, praying to Krishna? What are the other things that we can do to attain moksha?
You should wait till chapter 8.
Okay.
And I will explain, Krishna will explain the different ways to attain the Supreme in different forms.
Okay.
And the name of the chapter is Attaining the Supreme.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And also we say that there is no question that is not answered in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is very elaborate. I love to discuss, I can keep going, but we will see, because I also want to make sure that devotees are attentive and grasping, and then it is useful. Then again, Arjuna comes back to this question. Krishna is speaking about transcendental knowledge. And transcendental knowledge, obviously Krishna explained what is transcendental knowledge is when every act is devoid of the desire for sense gratification. And Arjuna is like, wait for a minute. Every activity is devoid for desire for sense gratification. And there is kingdom, and everything I see here is not at all matching. It's like transcendental knowledge. And whatever Krishna is speaking, Arjuna is experiencing. So Arjuna again thinks that then I don't want to fight. Because if it is motivated by kingdom, we want to become the king, better I go for begging. And then Krishna also says, you should work only for the sake of divine. Krishna says in 3rd chapter, Krishna says clearly that one is forced to work according to the modes, mode of passion, goodness, ignorance. And what can repression of the mode accomplish? One will be forced to act. Rather, one should act in a spirit of devotion only for the pleasure of Vishnu. Otherwise, the work will cause bondage. And then there is this. So he is like, wait, Krishna. So, Krishna, do you want me to work in devotion? Like you said, fight for the sake of Vishnu, otherwise, work causes bondage. Or should I renounce? And then obviously, I'm exhibiting that I'm not acting out of desire for sense gratification. And that will be real knowledge. Why to engage in this affair again? So, again, this is also conditioning that when one is very attached to one's opinion, one's views, then it takes multiple iterations to come out of those views. It takes many instructions to come out of those views. It takes a long time to surrender. That's why surrender is not easy, because we are conditioned. We are conditioned soul. So again, he asked, better to renounce work then, or do you want me to work in devotion? And then Krishna says both work in devotion and renouncing work are good for liberation. And this renouncing work here refers to Sankhya. Krishna says those who knows how Sankhya and work in devotion are both good for liberation, they are in knowledge. But ignorant, they think one is better over the another and vice versa. It's very interesting. And today we will not discuss about the concept of Sankhya and how Sankhya can bring liberation. But then Krishna says, if you ask, both are good for liberation, but then Krishna says, of the two, work in devotion is better. Both are good for liberation, Sankhya and Bhakti. Kapila Muni also explains the concept of Sankhya. Then Arjuna asked, Uddhava asked Krishna about Sankhya Yoga. And then Krishna explains elaborately many chapters about the process of Sankhya Yoga. And it's a very important or very wonderful discussion about Sankhya Yoga also. But it is so complex to understand, and many times it feels like I'm not getting it. It's very complex, and that's why Krishna says liberation, both are good. If somebody says one can give liberation, one cannot give liberation, they are not in knowledge. But at the same time, both are good for liberation. Work and devotion can take you to Vaikuntha, take you to Golok Vrindavan. But Sankhya can only give you liberation, Brahman realization. But that's about it. But Krishna is speaking that both are good for liberation, and that is true. You can get liberation that way also. But Krishna says then the work and devotion is better. And then Krishna says it is one who work in devotion, his senses is controlled, he serves everyone, everyone becomes dear to him, he becomes dear to everyone, he becomes joyful. But Sankhya is a very dry path, very dry path and speculative path. And so Krishna says, after giving various reasons, that work in devotion is better. And then Krishna explains the concept of three doers. And Krishna says, every activity is carried out by the three modes of material nature. Every activity. Whether we are sinning, this is a very interesting concept. Okay, I sinned. So is it that I sinned, or is it a particular mode that forced me to sin? For example, I break regulatory principles, say wine or meat eating. Then is it the mode of ignorance impelling me to act and take? When the three modes are doing, then I am being forced by mode of ignorance. Illicit sex, I am being forced by the mode of passion. So should I blame myself? Or is it the modes who are doing, when everything is done by the influence of the modes? And what can the repression of mode accomplish? I cannot repress the mode. Now I have these desires and I do it. And that's why Krishna says, regulate. Regulate attachment and aversion. Otherwise, if you don't regulate, they will become stumbling block in your life. So who is responsible then? That's why Krishna brings this concept here of the three doers. Is the mode responsible? In one way, the mode is responsible. In one way. And I will explain it. I do a sinful activity because it is said, I don't follow Shastra when I'm influenced by the lower modes. When I'm in mode of ignorance, then I will be illumined by knowledge. I won't do anything wrong. But when I'm influenced by mode of ignorance, mode of passion, so are they the doers? Krishna says, no, they are not the doers also. So they are the doers. But why a particular mode is acting on me is based on my karma, how I acted and what I desire. And that's why that mode has influence on me. And then Krishna says, but these modes are acting under my direction. Then one may say, then is Krishna, modes are acting on me and modes are acting under direction of the Lord. So is Krishna responsible for my good or bad? Krishna says, I don't assume anybody good or bad either. And the three modes are not responsible, but it is the ignorance of the living entity himself. It is the ignorance of the living entity himself. We do wrong thing, we do sinful thing, and then now we become, like Srila Prabhupada says, the modes become more stringent on us now. We are more tightly bound. We are trying to enjoy the modes. We are trying to exploit the modes, and we are becoming further bound by the modes, and then further bound, and then further bound. And more we are bound, the more tightly we are impelled to act based on those modes acting on us. So Krishna says ultimately the root cause from where it all begins is ignorance. And then again Krishna brings the point of transcendental knowledge. And Krishna says this ignorance can be removed by transcendental knowledge. Again, when we understand who I am, what is right, what is wrong, what is my constitutional position, what is my relationship, what the Shastras say, you know. So when we come in knowledge, then we have the discrimination. Now we are hearing, we are attending discussions every 5 days. Now we have some discrimination. What is right, what is wrong, what to do, what not to do. So Krishna says is the ignorance by which the living entity desire, because he doesn't know what is right, what is wrong. And when he is in ignorance, he desires, and the modes facilitate. That desire is also impelled by the modes, and that is based on the living entity's karma. Then the modes facilitate, and the Lord sanction, and then he is further implemented. So the idea is, or the rescue is, then one has to come to transcendental knowledge, and that's why fourth chapter, fifth chapter are connected, because same message is coming across again. Then we need transcendental knowledge. And Krishna says, just like the sun, when the sun comes, the darkness is removed. Likewise, when the transcendental knowledge illumines the heart, the nascence or the ignorance of the heart is removed. And then, just like when sun comes, one sees things as they are. When we are illumined by knowledge, we see things as they are. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Kavi Hastani Shuni Cheva Sopake Pandita Samadarshina. What is the effect of transcendental knowledge? You see a dog eater. You see a Brahmana, you see an elephant, and you see Samadarshina. You see that how everyone is a spirit soul, everyone is part and parcel of Krishna. This is basically a stage of Uttama Adhikari, or the pure devotees of the Lord. They can have this vision. So their heart is illumined by transcendental knowledge. Although it goes from the point of ignorance and nascence, who is committing sinful and pious activity, to a person in knowledge who is practicing this verse of Samadarshina. But then it is from a materialist to a Uttamadhikari. So that's why these verses are very short, and there's a big jump. But to get to that transcendental knowledge and approach a spiritual master, hear about how to perform devotional service, let it mature over a period of time, and gradually the knowledge is revealed. And to the extent the knowledge is revealed, then there is gradually the ignorance of the heart is removed, and one is fully awakened. Then one can apply this verse of Brahmane Kavi Hastini, and then Krishna continues the same principle. Then gradually all the sins, and one become free from the three modes of material nature, and finally one becomes peaceful a complete tranquil. And then Krishna says the peace formula at the end, saying, Bhoktaram yagetapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantim rachati. One who considers me as the enjoyer. Naturally, when we transcend the knowledge itself means when our activity are devoid of the desire for sense gratification. So peace formula, first line is Bhoktaram Yagatapasam. I am the enjoyer of all the sacrifices. So that is, he is the enjoyer, and our activity is to please him. Then we don't get into bondage and we remain free. And then he is a proprietor. Everything belongs to him. Prabhupada gives an example of a thief. Prabhupada says a thief went and robbed the bank, and somebody says, he takes something, and the thief says, hey, this is my property. Why are you taking this away from me? I am the one who robbed the bank. Get lost from here. So the thief itself is a thief, and he stole everything. And then he is claiming proprietorship, that this belongs to me. Why? Because I have worked and I have acquired it. And I have done the hard work of robbing the bank and used my intelligence, and now this is mine. And how dare you touch my money to another thief? So Prabhupada said, this is going on, this is foolishness. Everything belongs to Krishna. And then we say, hey, this is mine. And why are you interfering in me? So Prabhupada says, we are all thieves. That's why the first one says, Krishna says, yes, everything belongs to me, but I let you use what is mine as per your quota. First verse of Ishopanishad, I let you use to live a peaceful life so that you can come back to me. But then if you claim proprietorship, then that is foolishness. So who become peaceful? When you understand Krishna is the proprietor. Baba Bank is the proprietor. You are the one who stole. Likewise, Krishna says, all the Brahmanda comes from the pores of Lord Karna Daksha Vishnu. When everything comes from the Lord, then how can we claim proprietorship over something in the Brahmanda? Yeah, this is mine, and this house is mine, and this car is mine, and this family members are mine. We cannot claim anything, but it has been given to us. But if we don't use whatever we have in the service of the Lord, then we are like thieves, Prabhupada says. So Sarva Loka Maheshwara, I am proprietor of everything. And then Sahuridam Sarva Bhutana. What does Sahuridam mean? Sahuridam means, Rupa Goswami explains, there is Sakya, there is Maitreya, and there is Sahuridam. So Sakya is friendship, Maitreya is friendship and Vatsalya, and Sahuridam is friendship and Dasya. Or in basically, Sahuridam means Krishna is my friend, and Krishna will help me. A friend in need is a friend indeed. Krishna will help me. I can take shelter of Krishna, and Krishna is one who is always there with me. So there is friendship, but there is not a friendship on equal level. There is friendship mixed with Dasya. It's like Krishna is my superior, and Krishna is my closest friend, but he is my superior, and that is Sahuridam. So Krishna says, Sahuridam Sarva Bhutana. When you consider me and take shelter of me, then I will take care of everything. Gyatva Mam Shantim Gacchati. One who knows this becomes peaceful. And then we will do sixth one also. Sixth one is every chapter of Bhagavad Gita is enlivening. So sixth one begins with Krishna explains that understand the mind. Mind is the cause of bondage, and mind is the cause of liberation. I will go on to the sixth very quickly. There is the whole process of Ashtanga Yoga. There is Yama, there is Niyama, there is Asana, there is Pranayam, there is Pratyahara, there is Dharana, there is Dhyana, and there is Samadhi. The first is Yama Niyama, things to do, things not to do. And then there is Asana. Asana are meant to control the body. Then there is Pranayam. Pranayam is the breath work. Pranayam is help to control the mind. The breath is considered as the king of the mind. And after the body and mind is controlled, and the mind becomes peaceful by pranayam, then one can withdraw the mind from engaging in the sense objects. And that is called pratyahara. Pratyahara means withdraw the senses from the object of the senses. And then there is dharana. Dharana means you hold the Lord 10th and 11th verse of the 6th chapter describe that you focus the eyes on the tip of the nose and your heart onto the form of the Lord Narayan. And this is called dharana. But when you do dharana, then again the mind may be disturbed here and there. So continue the process of asana and dharana while following the rules and regulation. Continue process of asana and pranayama, and then do dharana. And then when mind goes here and there, do asana, do pranayama, and then do dharana, or hold the Lord. Withdraw from the senses and hold the Lord. Withdraw from the senses, engage the mind in the Lord. Withdraw from the senses, engage the mind in the Lord. This is the process of Ashtanga Yoga. Prabhupada says this is not practical in this day and age because it takes a very long time. The yogis in um, um, Satya Yoga, Treta Yoga, who would live for 100,000 years, 10,000 years can practice that. But nowadays, it's not very practical because the mind is influenced by the age of Kali. It is already said, and the mind is very, very disturbed in this age of Kali. So very, very difficult to practice this process. So then there is dharana, and then once dharana become more and more stable, then there is dhyan. But if you see, this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita is not only for Kali Yuga. This knowledge of Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Krishna to Suryadev 40 million years ago. When Suryadev started means all the yugas are passing by. Satyug, Dwapar Treta Yuga, Kali Yuga. So Krishna is not necessarily speaking only about Kali Yuga, but people in different ages, those who want to practice this process, the process is given. The knowledge is there. And that's why Bhagavad Gita is throughout, it's valid. So Krishna explains this process of Ashtanga Yoga. Then you dharana, you withdraw, and you hold the mind onto the Lord, hold it onto the Lord, hold it onto the Lord. And then you can go to the stage of dhyan. Dhyan means now you can focus more. The mind has become more and more purified. The process of every anga, whether it is Ashtanga, whether it is Brahman realization, every anga has to be touched by bhakti. Ashtanga also bhakti component is there, but it is more of a silent process, sitting process. There is work, and the work is asana and pranayama. It is only for those in the renounced order. Krishna describes in this chapter the yama and niyama, and one of the niyama is only for those who are complete celibate. They must go in a secluded place, sit in a place, seat which is not too high, not too low, place a deer skin so they are not disturbed by snakes and scorpions. The envious animals won't come and bite if there is a deer skin. So place a deer skin and do severe austerities in cold and sun. So it's a very, very difficult process, and Prabhupada says not practical for this age of Kali, especially when the mind is so much disturbed by the three modes, mode of passion, goodness, and ignorance. But the process is given. Those who want to follow, more than welcome, but it won't work in this age. And then then there is dhyan, and then there is samadhi, and then Krishna says in the beginning the and the work is said to be the means, and at the stage of advanced stage the cessation of work is said to be the means. Means in the beginning one has to work on asana pranayam. There is rigorous asana pranayam, but at the end, this is because the body and mind has to be controlled. At the end, cessation of work, then you just sit and you meditate. In Bhakti Yoga also same, the principles applied in Ashtanga Yoga applied to Bhakti Yoga also. In the beginning, the work, Prabhupada says, work now, samadhi later. Whether it is book distribution, whether it is prachar, whether it is cooking, bhoga, serving in the temple, deity worship, work is said to be the means. We cannot sit whole day and then remember Krishna. It is said when we come to the stage of advanced bhakti, raganuga bhakti and bhava bhakti, prema bhakti, then cessation of work is said to be the means. Then you can sit at one place and whole day you can do smaran, like Madhavendra Puri, like Ishwar Puri, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his Antya Leela, completely absorbed. But right now we are not on that stage. So Prabhupada says, don't try to chant like Haridas Thakur, go to Vrindavan and chant like that. Right now, work is the means, and at the advanced stage, cessation of work is the means. The principle of Ashtanga Yoga, principle of Bhakti Yoga goes in parallel with each other. Work now, samadhi later. And that's how then Krishna explains what is Ashtanga Yoga, explain the different stages of Ashtanga Yoga. Naturally, we can go in great depth, There is yoga ruler stage, which is the advanced stage of yoga. What happens at the stage of samadhi? Krishna says, having attained this, one thinks there is no higher gain. There is unlimited amount of joy because holding the Lord in the heart, and the mind becomes very, very stable, undisturbed by anything. Krishna gives an example, just like the lamp in a windless environment. When there is no wind, the lamp is steady. Likewise, the mind is fixed on the Lord. That is samadhi. Nothing, not even waver here and there. The word may go here and there, nothing moves. An example of Ashtanga Yoga Samadhi is Samyik Rishi. When Parikshit Maharaj went there, he asked for water. Samyik Rishi did not respond. He placed the dead body of a snake around his neck and left, which he lamented later on. And he wanted the curse to come upon us. And when the curse came upon through Shringi, then Parikshit Maharaj took it gratefully, thinking the reaction has come upon me now, and he was grateful for that. But when Samyik Rishi, because he was Ashtanga Yogi, his mind was fixed. He did not even realize when the king come, what is being garlanded. His mind was fixed onto the Lord. And Parikshit Maharaj and Prabhupada says, for us, Samadhi is like Mother Yashoda is the highest stage of Samadhi for Bhakti Yogi. She's always thinking how to do for Krishna. Prabhupada is always thinking how to serve Krishna. So for us, it is always, Prabhupada says, at the end of the life, you can either, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur took and he performed Nirjan Bhajan last 4 years. He stayed in his own home called Bhakti Dham in Calcutta, which he built when he was young, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Then he stayed there for 4 years. And then he just performed his bhajan day and night. Prabhupada says you can do that, you can continue working for spreading Krishna consciousness. That's your choice. But those principles remain the same. And then when Arjuna says, in a windless lamp like mind, so stable, and his mind is like completely turbulent. He is lamenting, he's still sitting, putting his quiver bow down, there's fighting, conch has blown, and he's like, what are you talking, Krishna? Krishna, this is impossible. Arjuna says, Krishna, this is impossible. What you are speaking about, this is impractical. Obviously, Arjuna has to perform his duty. He is Kshatriya, and Krishna is giving this concept of samadhi to Arjuna. Arjuna says, I can control the wind also. I can use the wind to create a weapon. I can control the wind, but I cannot bring my mind like what you are speaking. Krishna says, yes. Krishna says, mind is very obstinate. And yes, all these qualities of mind are there. But then Krishna says in the end, Abhyasena tu kauntaya vairagyena cha griyate. He says by practice, 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 practice. And if you're not practicing to control the mind, we are naturally letting the mind go loose. And that's why there are regulation, Krishna says. Regulate attachments and aversions. Regulate them. If you hate something, okay, then work on that, because that is also other side of attachment. Wherever there is attachment, aversion is also there. This is a word of duality, and we have to deal favorably in both attachment and aversion. Regulate. So likewise, Krishna says, Abhyas to karna hoga. We have to try. And then he says Vairagya. Because Vairagya, if there is no Vairagya, the mind becomes very cranky. Just like a child, he wants a toy, the mother father doesn't give the toy, then the child starts crying. The child needs a pizza. Mother father said no pizza today, or we are not going out to Chuck E. Cheese today, and then the child starts crying. But if the child develops vairagya, no Chuck E. Cheese, that's okay. If he just thinks like that, then he will be peaceful. But if he remains attached to Chuck E. Cheese, to Nintendo, to this food that he wants to eat, to this toy that he wants, then he will be miserable. And same principle, the mind is the same. We also have the same mind, and we have our own attachments. And if you don't get those attachments, then the mind can be frustrated, or you can control the mind by bringing vairagya. So that vairagya has to come. Vairagya is the element of bhakti. Bhakti brings vairagya, but then it's also an abhyas. That's why Krishna, abhyas is also to be there. So there has to be in practice, and then practice the vairagya. And then Krishna says, then you can control. Then after this, Arjuna thinks, well, that is very nice. I can try abhyas, I can try vairagya, but what if I'm not successful? Then what is the destination of a yogi who is not successful? Then Krishna says, if you're practicing yoga, which is same for it's spoken about Ashtanga Yogi, but it is true for Bhakti Yogi also. Krishna says, well, even if you're unsuccessful after long practice, you are born in a family of transcendentalists, and you will again be attracted to yogic principles, and you will start the practice of dharana, dhyan, samadhi again. And how much focus you will be based on how much focused focus you have attained, how much control you have attained in your past life. And this will continue till you attain perfection. But those who start and they give up in a very early time, will they will be given heavenly pleasures, because when one begins, naturally one is full of desires. But the benefit of Ashtanga Yoga or Bhakti Yoga, if we don't, because we get a lot of piety by performing Bhakti only. Because if the Bhakti is not done for the pleasure of the Lord, which initially is not the case, then Bhakti is done for some material motives also. And then Krishna will let you fulfill those material desires. Krishna will send you to heaven and enjoy unlimited heavenly pleasure. And then after that, we come back and we take birth in a family of rich aristocracy. So no need to worry about um, um, struggle for existence, and then focus on what is the purpose of life. That opportunity is again given, and one will again be attracted to how much advancement, and advancement is eternal, keeps on going till we attain perfection. And then finally, in the last two verses, Krishna says, a yogi is higher than karmi, a yogi is higher than jnani, a yogi is higher than ashtangi. Tasmad yogi bhava Arjuna. Therefore, Arjuna become a yogi. And third and fifth chapter about karma, fourth about jnana. But actually, Bhagavad Gita is all about bhakti. The way we have seen sixth chapter, also bhakti is there. Because Krishna says, think of me within the region of the heart. Fourth chapter also bhakti is there. One who has become accomplished in the path of devotional service, accomplish this transcendental knowledge. Fourth chapter also is there. Everything about Bhakti Yoga is about Bhagavad Gita is Bhakti. But Krishna specifically says that Shuddha Bhakti is something different. Although Karma Yoga is also Bhakti, because you are acting according to the modes, but you are um, um, using the results to serve Krishna, or doing it for the pleasure of the Lord. Work has to be done for the pleasure of Vishnu, otherwise the work causes bondage. Bhakti is there in Karma Yoga, Bhakti is there in Jnana Yoga, Bhakti is there in Ashtanga Yoga. If you actually see all these six chapters, Bhakti is there everywhere, because it is described. None of the process can give perfection without the angle of Bhakti in that. Bhakti has to be there. But Krishna says, but Krishna specifically declares that a yogi is higher than all this. That also signifies wherever Krishna says yoga, Krishna is referring to Bhakti Yoga. It's a terminology. Like, for example, Krishna says, karme bhi adhiko yogi, jnane bhiyo. Anyways, a yogi is higher than this, and therefore Arjuna become a yogi. And in the second chapter, Krishna describes, perform your duty equipoised with for the sake of the Lord. And that equanimity is called yoga. And that yoga, everywhere Krishna uses the word yoga, he is actually referring to Bhakti Yogi. Because here, Krishna is telling a yogi is higher than karmi, a yogi is higher than jnani, a yogi is higher than ashtangi. Krishna is not even saying a yogi is higher than karmi yogi, higher than jnani yogi, higher than ashtangi yogi. He is telling a yogi is higher than this, and this. And then Krishna says, yoginam api sarvesham mad gatentar atmana shraddhavan bhajate yamam same yukto tamo mataha. Krishna says, among all the yogis, who is the best? Shraddhavan bhajate yamam, who with faith worships me within his heart. Shraddhavan bhajate yamam. Mat gatenantar atmana. Within himself, with Shraddha bhajate, who worships me within his heart. Same yukto tamo mataha. And he is the best among all the yogis. And then in the seventh chapter, Krishna continues the discussion about, now seventh chapter changes gears, and Krishna speaks about Bhakti Yoga. And I can continue for 1 more hour, or half more hour, or no more hour. This Nemish
Hare
has
Krishna.
to
Hare
decide.
Krishna.
Prabhu, what I'm thinking is let's break it into 3 parts, and we'll stop here for today's part and maybe open up for questions. Is that okay, Prabhu?
Okay, whatever you say, Prabhu. I mean, I had a desire to do 9, 3 more,
Yeah.
but then I just go with the flow, and I don't know how much time it takes.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
let's open and see what devotees have so far.
I have 2 questions to
Yes,
ask, Prabhuji.
Go
Hare
ahead,
Krishna,
Master.
Shaman and Prabhuji. Thank you so much for this class. My question is, first one is like, you said that practicing detachment through frustration or not attaching to the desires or results. So what is that type of detachment, Prabhu? Like, if it is it better to get detached through knowledge, or is it better if the detachment comes automatically out of frustration?
So your question is on Vairagya?
Yeah.
So can you explain the first line again? You said detachment is...
Detachment, if it comes automatically by knowledge, that is good, right? Instead of getting the detachment through frustration, like my desires are not fulfilled, um, or the plans are not working, or I'm too much attached to my desires or the results. So instead, I leave them and practice detachment. Is that the good way, or how to practice detachment in a good way,
Yeah,
Prabhuji?
it's a very long question. Today morning, almost 45 minute discussion on this topic only, Mataji. Very long discussion on Vairagya, different kinds of Vairagya. So, Mataji, um, there is improper renunciation. I don't know. There are so many concepts combined in this one question that you asked. Uh, some things are not favorable for our bhakti, and if we renounce those which are not favorable for bhakti, even though the attachment to those things are there, it is not it is not vairagya, it is tapasya. Tapasya is, I like something, I know it is not good for me, so I won't do it. I will renounce those things that are not favorable for me. That is tapasya. But when I don't have desire for those things, that's because I have raised myself from mode of ignorance and passion, and I have come to mode of goodness. Like an example is given, Matravat Paradhareshu. Dareshu is wife. Paradareshu means somebody else's wife. Matravat. Saying anybody's wife, anybody else's wife as one's mother. Matravat Paradareshu. Prabhupada would give this example of Chanakya Pandit. Um, and then the last line of that verse, it says, um, uh, Yaha Pashyati Sa Pandita. Whoever sees like that is a Pandit. Who is a Pandit? Who is in mode of goodness. When somebody is in mode of goodness, he is not interested. When somebody is mode of passion and ignorance, he is interested in that. Now for him, following regulative principle is tapasya. But for a Pandita who is actually in mode of goodness, he has no interest. He is completely peaceful. He is illumined by knowledge. That desire is not there. The lower modes goes away. Sinful desires goes away. Now he is exhibiting vairagya. Vairagya will come naturally. By the strength of bhakti.
So when we practice bhakti in the mode of goodness, or when we come out of these 2 lower modes to the mode of goodness, then it is like we are practicing vairagya, or we are able to get vairagya, Prabhuji?
Yes, vairagya will come by advancement in bhakti.
Bhakti.
As we advance in bhakti, the material desire will go away. Prabhupada says, when desire is not there, there is vairagya. One of the symptom of bhava bhakti is virakti. Vairagya means I'm not interested. Virakti means I'm disgusted. Virakti means a very high stage of vairagya. And only when one develops virakti in this word, in everything in this word, he has a strong laulyam to go back to Godhead. A strong greed to go back to Godhead. Why? Because he's very much attached there and he is very much detached here. And it is something very natural. It is not something which is forceful. And that's why it is said that Vairagya is a son of Bhakti. Vairagya and Gyan, the actual transcendental knowledge, that is to do every activity devoid from the desire for sense gratification, the real Gyan, the real realization, and the real Vairagya, that will come only by the practice of Bhakti. Otherwise, it is artificial, it is not sustainable.
Mhm.
But at the same time, we must practice it out of fear of losing the higher taste.
Mm.
Param Drishtva Nivartate. That is the stage of Nishtha. परम दृष्टवा है, so उसके लिए छोड़ देंगे, we will give it up. But this is not actually vairagya, which comes by the gradual process of bhakti.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah.
So devotee who starts, they will start with tapasya. While they're doing bhakti, they will get vairagya. And at the later stage, as they keep continuing doing their bhakti, they will come to a stage where they're just disgusted, right?
Virakti, yes प्रभु. बस आपने सब conclude कर दिया प्रभु जी. Thank you.
No, I'm
Yeah.
just understanding
Yeah.
what you
Yes,
shared.
Prabhuji.
Yes,
Yeah,
Prabhu.
when we come to Krishna consciousness, definitely we are in the we are in almost like a frustration towards the material world around us. That's why we try to find another path where we find happiness, or we want to find our own self. So that is the first step, I believe.
That is very nice, Mataji. I also agree with you. But at the same time, we understand that one cannot be frustrated from this material world on an absolute level unless one comes to the path of bhakti.
Mm.
And that's why we see in this material world there is a discussion of bhog and tyag. Is we enjoy, and then when our enjoyment is frustrated, enjoyment leads to frustration, frustration leads to tyag, renunciation. We call it renunciation, but the renunciation is artificial because that renunciation will again bring back to bhog at some point of time in future.
Mm.
Because it is not something, it is coming out of frustration, but it is not coming, there is an experience which is good, but it is not coming because we have transcended the modes, or we have attained pure sattva guna and the lower modes are not acting. So bhakti will give you a permanent effect.
Mm.
But this bhog tyag is something that will go on. Krishna says one can come to me when we are distressed. Many of us, probably most of us, came to Krishna consciousness out of distress. But then after some time, the desires may again arise. And then we practice tapasya, which is not good. And eventually we attain vairagya, which is true vairagya. Does it answer my question?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah. Thank you so much. Now
Thank
it is
you.
very clear. Prabhuji, I have one more question. Like
Mm.
when you are saying that Ashtanga yogi or other yogi process also have little pinch of bhakti. So suppose, for example, in this lifetime, I am an Ashtanga yogi and I didn't even practice bhakti yoga much. Then what about my next life? Like, will I be able to get a chance of performing bhakti? Prabhuji, will these pious credits or will these Ashtanga yogi credits will be carried to the next life too?
Ashtanga yogi. Well, based on what Krishna says, Krishna specifically mentions one will be attracted to the principles of, to the yogic principles. And once begin from there. But in general, if one is in Kali Yoga, bhakti is the only way in this Kali Yoga, Mataji. Only way is Nam Sankirtan. And in this Kali Yoga, now see Mataji, every yoga has a particular process. If we say somebody is an Ashtanga Yogi practitioner in Kali Yoga, it's just a fake. There is no real Ashtanga Yogi practitioner because this is not possible. Who can tolerate such heat and such cold and live just with some undergarments in this winter, in this snow, control that level of mind, and who can do that and practice these principles? It's just not practical in this age. The mind is so much disturbed. So in this age, that's why different ages have different prescriptions. But those in Satya Yuga, because this dhyan is the means, which is basically Ashtanga Yoga is the means, they will be attracted to their principles in Satya Yuga.
Mm. Okay, good. Yeah,
Thank you.
got it, good. Thank you so much.
So Prabhu, I have a follow-up to what Mataji was saying. So let us say for bhakti, a person who's trying to do bhakti yoga, but he's also trying to perform, he's trying to do tapasya, right? He's trying to perform tapasya because he has desires, but he's on the path of bhakti. But at some point, let us say there is a fall down. At that point, what can that person do? Like, does he again come back and joyfully perform where he left off?
It depends upon the definition of fall down, Prabhu. One definition of fall down is he breaks a regulative principle, perform a sinful activity, or something. That person, he will, next day he performs bhakti again. He again chant his rounds. He may make a mistake. It can be a very severe mistake. 9th chapter discuss this. Apiche suduracharo. Then he again practice bhakti. Some sinful reaction will be there. The purpose of that sinful reaction is to teach him a lesson what not to do again. So reaction will be there, but he will very soon be established in the path of bhakti, and he never loses anything, but temporary disturbance will be there in the mind. Mainly mental problems will come. Some reaction will be there. But then if somebody gives up bhakti because of lack of association, because of aparadh, if it is because of lack of association, it is seen. Whenever they get association, they again resume from where they left off. So it's never lost. But if somebody loses bhakti because of aparadh, may not, it may take a little longer time to come out of that reaction. But eventually, still, that is never lost. That bhakti is also never lost, but it will be very long time. Like Gopal Chapla performed aparadh, and for many, many years he had to suffer. And then, but eventually he was relieved. He begged forgiveness from Shivas Thakur, and then he became a devotee. Devananda Pandit, he offended Shivas Thakur. He lost taste in Bhagavatam, but after rendering service to Bakreshwar Pandit and receiving the mercy and instruction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he again got back his devotion in his heart and explained Bhagavatam in an authentic way. So then it may take lifetimes also, but yes, never lost. Did I address, Prabhuji?
Yes, perfect, Prabhuji. And one more question, Prabhu, about transcendental knowledge. So it seems like Krishna was focusing on transcendental knowledge, right? So far, what we heard. And the way to get transcendental knowledge was to approach a spiritual master and to perform seva, right? So now some questions which come is, let us say spiritual master is not physically present with us. So how is the best way to perform seva at that point?
Yeah, Prabhu. Seva is Vapu, Seva is Vani, higher is Vani. It's listening from spiritual master. We can serve the spiritual master. Like His Holiness Sadhana Swami Maharaj says, he says the purpose of Vapu is Vani. Vapu is temporary, Vani is eternal. Prabhupada is still living with us through his books. He is living with us through his lectures. So there is still a chance to serve him on a higher level through giving reception to his books and his Vani. And that's what we are doing now is Srila Prabhupada as it is we are serving Srila Prabhupada. This is called Vani Seva.
Right.
Submissive hearing itself will give an understanding.
Nice, Prabhu. Thank you.
And also after we receive understanding, transcendental knowledge is not received by hearing submissively, but by hearing we get a direction, and by following the instructions of spiritual master. Then gradually by following bhakti under the direction of spiritual master, practicing devotional service under the direction, under the instruction of spiritual master is what will reveal the transcendental knowledge.
And that transcendental knowledge is going to cut any knot which is in our heart.
Everything. Because there is bhakti involved
Yeah.
in that Krishna explains everything from the perspective of Bhakti Prabhu. But he does not glorify, he does not speak about himself until 7th chapter. He's just giving the knowledge and Bhakti element. In 7th chapter, he speaks about himself, his opulences, how everything is emanating from him, how once you surrender onto him, then that is pure Bhakti part.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank
Do devotees have other questions?
I have a couple of questions.
you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So I was reading Bhagavatam, and in the Bhagavatam, I read Narad Muni was describing about his life journey. So he mentioned like in the previous birth of, in the previous day of Brahma, he did a devotional service to all the sages, and then finally in the next birth he became Narad Muni. So and at that time, he mentioned that he was listening to Krishna Leela and everything in the previous day of Brahma. So my question is like Krishna comes in each day of Brahma. So the same pastimes and all the same thing happens, or is it different, or how is it like
Okay. So Mataji, where were you reading that?
in Bhagavatam?
In like 5th chapter, 6th chapter?
No, first canto where Narad Muni describes how he became Narad Muni.
So Prabhupada says he was hearing about Krishna?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So see, Prabhupada is Mahabhagavad Vaishnava. And Prabhupada is giving his guidance through every verse on how we should live our life. But the process at that point of time that Narad Muni followed was now, is Krishna's pastimes there? They are there before even Krishna came. Bhagavatam was again written by Vyasadeva for us right after Krishna's disappearance. But Bhagavatam is their heavenly planet before also. The pastimes of the Lord are eternal. Just like Valmiki wrote Ramayana in Satya Yuga when the pastimes of Lord Ram happen in Treta Yuga. And whatever we have, even though whatever the earthly planet goes through Kali Yuga and destruction, the heavenly planet will still there. Those Bhagavatam will remain and Krishna will again come. Krishna comes every day. Yeah, I mean Brahma is still there. Brahma has these Vedic literatures. So this knowledge is eternal. But the process of Narad Muni was more of Smaranam. And Smaranam on the four-handed form of the Lord. And he did hear about the activities of the Lord. And they were Bhakti Vedantas. He became eventually a devotee of Narayan. And then when Krishna came, then he became the devotee of Krishna because he participated in the pastimes of Krishna also. Eventually, that time he became a devotee of Krishna. But initially it was more of a Narayan. But if your question is, are Krishna's pastimes still there? Yes. Are they eternal? Yes. Did I address, Mataji, your question?
So is it like we first do all the follow all those 9 stages of bhakti, and then we get to associate with Krishna, and then finally go back to Krishna Loka? Is that the process?
That is correct, Mataji. After we attain perfection, we cannot attain complete perfection in this material body. Bhakti Charu Maharaj says the love cannot go to that level unless we have physical association of Krishna. One of the last lecture Bhakti Charu Maharaj gave on Zoom in our temple. So Maharaj was mentioning that's why after we attain a stage of almost perfection, then we take birth in the universe, in the planet where Krishna is performing his pastimes. And then we are trained under eternal associate of Lord Krishna in whichever relationship we are in. And then we attain Vastu Siddhi, which is like ultimate perfection, absolute purity. which is not possible in this world, in this body. And once we get fully trained in Vastu Siddhi, then we join Krishna back and we become the eternal associate of the Lord. That is true.
Okay, thank you. One more question I had. Like Arjun is an eternal associate of Krishna. So when Krishna was saying Bhagavad Gita to Arjun, so like is this because of Krishna that all this confusion happened in his mind, or he actually forgot everything and I
Yes.
mean asked
This is,
everything?
this is Yoga Maya Shakti Mataji of Krishna. That makes it, they never come under the contact of Mahamaya. And these concepts are covered in the 9th chapter. Mahatmanastu Mam Partha Devim Prakritim Ashita. Those who are great souls, who descend or who become great souls here, they're always under the internal energy of the Lord. Even Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he is an associate of Srimati Radharani. When he came manifested in this material world, his pastimes, he became a Christian. He was following a Vivekananda. He was following various Hinduism, and after a very long time, he got a copy of Chaitanya Charitamrita. He was very impressed by the devotion of Lord Chaitanya. And then he was thinking, Chaitanya is, there is nobody who exhibited devotion like Lord Chaitanya, but why is he that he is worshipping a god like Krishna? So all those doubts were there, and that is only considered as Yogamaya potency of the Lord. Srila Prabhupada, he is also a Senapati of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then Prabhupada was attracted to Gandhi movement and freedom. But the moment he met his Guru Maharaj, his course of life changed. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, Supreme Personality of Godhead, he was acting like a Vyakaran teacher, grammar. He would defeat everybody, argue. But then when he met Ishwar Puri, then he became a devotee. The news spread, Nimai Pandit has become a devotee. And then there is a whole night kirtan that started. Previously, before he became a devotee, he the devotees would run away from him because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Nimai Pandit, great scholar. He would bring them into strike a conversation of scholarship and they would try to run away. And they would think, only if Nimai Pandit become a devotee, it'll be so nice because we love him so much. He's so attractive. But then he stops them and discuss about grammar, Vyakaran, and they're like, no, we cannot tolerate this. So this is all Yoga Maya potency of the Lord.
So was it so the Yoga Maya potency even on Chota Haridas Thakur? So whatever happened with him, was it on purpose?
That is a good question. Was that a pastime of the Lord? Should be seen as a pastime of the Lord because Narottam Das Thakur, he says, in Nitya Leela, he says, all the associates of the Lord are the eternal associates of the Lord, including all the associates of the Lord are eternal associates. So they're eternal associate, then they can never be attracted by Mahamaya. But the Lord teaches through his own devotees. That's how we should see all the associates.
So even people who were living in that area and was, sometimes saying bad things about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even all those things were on purpose.
Yeah, whatever were the associates of the Lord with whom Lord was living and performing pastime eternal. And those who Mahaprabhu delivered by his glance, by telling them chant Hare Krishna and never met them, that is compassion. That is, he delivered the whole universe. But those who were living with him and performing pastimes, they are all an associate.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam Jai Shri Prabhupada. So I have a follow-up question on Priyanka Mataji's question, like what happens when a soul goes from this body to a different planet and from different planet to go to Krishna Loka. So Prabhuji, if somebody is thinking about Krishna at the time of death, then also they go to intermediate planet to become free from everything.
Yeah, because when Krishna is there, Krishna comes in Vrindavan. So the whole Vrindavan descends, Mataji. So that Goloka in Bhauma and the Goloka in Vaikuntha, not different. Huh? We hear that. So he is still there in Vrindavan.
So where does the soul go to become free, Prabhuji? Is it one of the Vaikuntha planets, like where the complete purification happens, or is it a part of Vrindavan?
Well, a part of purification is, like it is said, part of purification is when we take birth in the planet where Krishna is performing his pastimes. Then next level of purification happens. Last vestiges that cannot happen in this body, that happens there. And I can give more understanding from the pastimes of Lord Krishna. When Krishna played the flute, some of the gopis could join him, some could not. And the explanation for Goswami is that some of them are eternal associates and some of them who were sages, and they came in that form. And if they have any last vestiges by separation from Krishna, even that were gone, and then they could see Krishna in person again, face to face. One cannot meet with Krishna or have any relationship with Krishna in any of the rasa unless one is completely purified. And that happens by that time it's a strong attachment. And then it's like verge of death out of separation from Krishna. And it's so strong that any last vestiges of anarthas goes away. That is not possible, Bhakti Charu Maharaj says, unless one see Krishna face to face. I mean, we understand Krishna is very beautiful, but then, how much do we understand? Yeah, and when we become completely pure, that level is still doesn't come when we actually are there. So that stage one has to go through.
Thank you for that question, Prabhuji. So in one of the lecture I heard, Krishna will not accept us unless, as you said, we are completely purified. Like unless everything is like our mind, intelligence, false ego, all the balances are zero. But Radharani accepts us in the way we are. So why don't we pray in the lotus feet of Radharani instead of Krishna? So
Yeah, that's what we try to do, is we approach Krishna through Srimati Radharani.
Yes.
And she will give us the way to faster mercy, definitely.
So is that okay to chant Radharani's name on beats, Prabhuji?
It is not given by our Sampradaya. It is not Shastric. Rather, we chant Radharani name through Hare Krishna Mahamantra, where Hare means Radharani.
But
Some people in Vrindavan do, and we consider them as pure devotees, but we don't follow because we have our own Sampradaya, and our scriptures don't recommend that.
So praying to Radharani's lotus feet is not it's a shortcut, but it's not a kind of recommended shortcut. Yeah.
Okay, so Prabhuji, what do you think?
Yes, Prabhu. I just want to check. Do any other devotees have any other questions? If you don't, Prabhu, thank you so much. This was very, very amazing. Like, I'm like so grateful to you for doing this. What I'm thinking is we'll do 2 more parts and we'll have 6 chapters and then the next 6 chapters. So I'll work with you, to figure out a good schedule.
Yes, Prabhu, I'm going to do that.
Yes, Prabhu.
Always eager, Prabhu, for your association also. Thank you.
On behalf of all of us, we really thank you, Prabhu, for taking the time and, sharing with us.
That's your kindness upon me. I gratefully accept it.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Please stay safe. I know weather in Michigan is very, very
Well, I'm thinking outside so much in India, there's so much warmth in the room. This is Krishna's grace. Yes, it is. And we had devotee association, we were discussing about the Lord. Such a great fortune, actually.
Thank you so much. Thank you all, dear devotees. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, everyone.
Prabhuji,
Great.
thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Thank you all.